Good afternoon, and welcome to the Shareholder Equity Conference and our second presentation today. I'm Dan Aldridge, Managing Partner of Asbury Investor Relations, and I have the pleasure of welcoming Nicholas Finazzo today, who's the Chairman and CEO for AerSale. AerSale is positioned to flourish as the economy continues to reopen, especially as there's a rebound in commercial air travel. So with that, I will turn the call over to Nick, and he'll give a few brief comments to start us off. Nick?
Okay, thanks, Dan, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Finazzo, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of AerSale. AerSale is in the commercial aviation business. We were founded over a decade ago and purpose-built to support airlines with used commercial aircraft and spare parts, maintenance services, and modifications. We became a public company at the end of 2020 by merging into a SPAC, and our shares are actively traded under the ticker ASLE on the NASDAQ. Our offerings are categorized in two units: asset management and technical operations, which we abbreviate as TechOps. Our asset management unit buys, sells, leases, and supplies whole commercial aircraft, mostly made by Boeing and Airbus, engines, mostly made by General Electric and Pratt & Whitney, and used aircraft and engine parts to the airline industry. Our TechOps unit performs maintenance on whole aircraft at our airport hangars in Roswell, New Mexico, Goodyear, Arizona, where we perform passenger to freighter conversions. We maintain aircraft component parts, including landing gear, flaps, rudders, and cowlings, and do the same for other components such as starters, generators, hydraulic pumps, wheels, and brakes. All these products and services are offered on a highly integrated and synergistic basis at one of our 6 FAA-approved certified repair stations located in Goodyear, Arizona, Miami, Florida, Rio Rancho and Roswell, New Mexico, and Memphis, Tennessee. Yes, Roswell, where the aliens landed. Sometimes I think we have a few of those working for us. Because of the diversity of our revenue sources, our business has built-in hedges that allow us to shift resources at different points in an economic cycle. We all know the global economy has been racked by the coronavirus, and the aviation sector has been particularly hard hit. Although certain segments of our business have suffered, others have prospered. Today, our on-airport maintenance activities are thriving, with aircraft coming into and out of storage at our facilities in New Mexico and Arizona, where we have been maintaining over 500 aircraft since the start of the global pandemic. As aircraft are returned to service, we benefit from heavy maintenance services, part supply, painting, and cargo conversions. A good example of how we shift resources is the acquisition of 26 Boeing 757 passenger aircraft over the past year. Although the passenger market has suffered since the start of the COVID pandemic, the freighter market is booming due to the rapid growth of the e-commerce market. I'm sure we all have regular deliveries of Amazon packages, and most of these are carried in dedicated freighter aircraft. Since the passenger and freighter aircraft are basically the same, except for the passenger seats, we easily shifted our focus to the cargo side. The Boeing 757 passenger aircraft purchase I just mentioned will be substantially supplied to support the freighter market, where we also have the technical capability and facilities to do these passenger to freighter conversions ourselves. Another segment of our business that we're very excited about is our Engineered Solutions Group, where we develop highly engineered products and are granted an exclusive license from the FAA called a Supplemental Type Certificate, or abbreviated STC, allowing us to modify commercial airline aircraft. This segment of our business has substantial growth opportunity, and we enjoy very high margins. Our STCs are improvements of the aircraft itself and may also comply with regulatory mandates. Today, we have STCs covering most Boeing and Airbus aircraft. Our first STC, which we named AerSale, prevents fuel vapors in an empty tank from catching fire. Second is called AirTrack, which permits our aircraft to be followed by the FAA's next generation air traffic control system via GPS. Our next STC is a work in process called AerAware, which incorporates a military-style head-wearable enhanced flight vision goggle that will permit our pilots to see in their goggle select flight deck instrumentation, as well as seeing through the weather. This advanced military technology and a head-wearable display is not presently available in the commercial market, and we already have it installed in our prototype Boeing 737 aircraft, functioning brilliantly. We expect to receive FAA certification of this product later. Despite the young age of AerSale, we have many tenured executives with decades of experience, having profitably navigated through multiple cycles in the aviation sector. We're perfectly positioned to thrive in this market. This time, I'm available to answer questions.
Thanks, Nick. So I'll just jump straight in. Obviously, the AwareWare technology sounds amazing, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But I thought we'd start with something that you talked about, and it's the diversity of the business and the different segments and how it allowed you to navigate through COVID. So I'd love just to hear a little bit more about that, the resiliency of the business, how you were able to adjust so well, and how you're positioned coming out.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, our diverse product offerings have created a counter-cyclical hedge where increased business in some units has more than offset declines in others. Combine this with our ability to deftly shift our focus from the passenger to the cargo side of the market enables us to thrive even in a tough aviation environment. Our multi-dimensional and integrated business model was purpose-built to give us a competitive advantage over our one-dimensional competitors who only offer one product or service. If demand for those products or services are severely impacted, it could mean the end of those one-dimensional companies. We take comfort in knowing that one or more of our segments will remain viable at any stage of an economic cycle. Further, our integrated multi-dimensional business model takes decades of relationships, industry expertise, and a substantial investment of capital to build, which creates a high barrier to entry for copycats. Unless you have all these elements, you cannot successfully replicate an AerSale in a decade.
Perfect. Sounds like there's definitely some deep moats around the business. So talk to me a little bit about the recovery in commercial aircraft. As we're coming out of COVID, people starting to go back to the office, you're going to have business travel hoping to pick up in the second half of the year. Talk about how you guys are positioned to take advantage of some of those trends.
Okay. So we believe this COVID-induced economic downturn, specifically to aviation, will present the greatest buying opportunity for used commercial aircraft that we've ever seen. Having purpose-built our multi-dimensional and integrated business model over the past decade to extract value out of aircraft set for retirement, the amount of used commercial airline aircraft that will be retired from service or transition to another operator will create an accelerant for our substantial growth over the next several years. One-dimensional companies cannot successfully extract value out of a whole aircraft or a fleet of aircraft because their focus is limited to a particular product or service. We maintain hundreds of aircraft stored at our on-airport facilities in Roswell and Goodyear, which may ultimately be sold by their owners. Having aircraft located at our airport facilities gives us a competitive advantage to purchase these aircraft when they become available. Boeing 757 aircraft I mentioned earlier were being maintained by us for a major airline at our Roswell facility. We didn't have to go very far to shop for this type of used flight equipment.
All right, so let's dig in a little bit to the different business segments. Let's talk about engineered solutions to start out with. It's obviously a fairly new area for you guys, very exciting. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in it and how meaningful this could be to your long-term growth?
Sure. So we found that as we were reconfiguring our own aircraft for lease, that our customers needed certain modifications so that they could operate the aircraft and comply with regulatory mandates. So when we looked at OEM solutions from Boeing and Airbus to comply with these mandates, we found that the OEM solutions were expensive, required significant downtime to install, had long lead times to acquire, or all of the above. We developed our first STC product, which we call AerSale, to cover a Boeing 737 NG, and have since obtained STCs for AerSale for the Boeing 737 Classic, the 767, 777, and are working on the 757. Also, the Airbus A3, 18, 19, 20, and 21 family of aircraft. Because of the extensive engineering capability we had before we created our Engineered Solutions Group, this has facilitated our rapid entry into this segment. We've now expanded our engineering group multi-fold to accommodate the increased demand and opportunity for our unique engineered solutions products.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about AerAware. You mentioned that earlier. Talk a little bit about what the opportunity is. What kind of services does it provide, and what does the longer term opportunity for the business?
Sure. So there are over 14,000 commercial airline aircraft that could benefit from the installation of our AerAware product. As I said, this is an advanced military technology, is in part manufactured by Israeli defense firm Elbit and their U.S. subsidiary Universal Avionics. They manufacture the components, and we manufacture the installation kit using our FAA Production Manufacturing Authority, which is referred to as PMA. And AerSale performs the aircraft modifications. AerSale will be the holder of the exclusive STC from the FAA, and we will co-market these systems with Elbit Universal. AerAware is different from a conventional old technology head-up display called a HUD that's been installed in the commercial airline industry aircraft for over 2 decades. AerAware, in contrast, incorporates advanced military technology. Our enhanced flight vision goggle uses the same technology our F-35 fighter pilots see through their in-flight helmet. It's also manufactured by Helmet, the vision part. The advantage of our flight vision goggle is that our pilots have a wide field of view, and they can see through heavy weather such as fog and smoke, enabling our pilots to take off and land in conditions others cannot. This will save both ground time and flight time with shorter landing patterns and fewer diversions due to weather, which will save the airlines a substantial amount of money and passengers a significantly less inconvenience.
Perfect. So as you can imagine, with this topic, we've gotten a couple questions from the audience. So I'm going to ask a couple of those since they're relevant and pertinent to what we're talking about. So can you please provide us with an update on your contract negotiations with your potential AerAware launch customer? Do you expect to receive an order from this customer prior to FAA approval?
Okay, so let me qualify that by saying potential, because we've been working with this particular customer now for, it seems like more than 6 months. This particular potential customer has flown with us on probably half of the flights that we've done on the aircraft, our prototype aircraft so far. Reports that we've heard back from that customer or potential launch customer is they like our system. They view it as more sophisticated than an alternative system that's on the market. It sees through the weather. It does everything that we would expect it to do, and they expect it to do. They've asked us whether we can include additional supplemental type certificates to be part of that system once the system is up and running, and potentially if they make a launch order. And I think we've done pretty much everything that we need to do to convince this customer that this is the right product for them. It is sophisticated technology that will take them out through the next several decades, and it will replace anything that's available today conventionally in the form of a HUD system. So we're very optimistic that our potential launch customer will select us once we get our STC, potentially even before, as long as we're very close to it. And we believe that launch customer would be interested in not only the 737NG, but correlation, the MAX, because they're very similar as far as the flight deck is concerned. Also the A320 and several of their larger carrier regional aircraft.
Thanks. And so I've got a follow up to that one, and you probably can't answer it, but I'll ask it anyway. But apart from the launch customer that you have any other airlines expressed interest in equipping their flights with AerAware?
Not to the level that we've heard from the company that we've been dealing with now for over the past 6 months. But yes, we have a number of customers that are very interested, and some very, very large ones that are very interested in the technology that we're incorporating in. incorporate this aircraft. So, our anticipation is once we get the system approved by the STC and we have a launch order, that big customer will be the first to have this technology, and we think everyone else will want it. That's why we're so optimistic about it.
Perfect. All right, so let's take it up about 10,000 feet and go back to the business segments. Talk a little bit about the asset management business, what that represents, how it works, and what the life cycle is from acquisition to monetization.
Sure. So we acquire used commercial aircraft. When we acquire them, we pretty much already know what we're going to do with that equipment based on decades of industry knowledge and about a dozen years of specific data that we've generated since the inception of AerSale. When we look at that aircraft, we determine the best and highest use of whether it's an aircraft, engine, or other flight equipment by running it through our models. And we figure whether the aircraft should be kept as a whole aircraft, engine, or whether the aircraft or engine should be disassembled into piece parts, broken down, and sold as parts. We call parts used serviceable material. You'll hear me for its industry acronym US, used serviceable material. That's strictly aircraft part. Today, after we acquire an aircraft or a fleet of aircraft, we take the best airframes and the engines, keep them together as suppliers, whether they be as whole aircraft or as whole engines. And we sell or lease those aircraft and engines to third parties. Now, when I refer to leases, these are not your typical, new aircraft leases. These are highly customized leases where AerSale supplies the engines, landing gear, parts, and maintenance services to the customers that are operating those aircraft. As a result, we generate an outsized lease return, which is substantially higher than the pure play leasing companies I mentioned a second ago. Those companies really are financial services companies. AerSale's not one of these. We're an operating company. If an aircraft or engine has greater value as piece parts than the whole aircraft, we break it down and we sell the USM parts to support our maintenance shop customers.
Okay, so sticking with asset management business, talk a little bit about the pipeline and kind of what you're seeing there. When do you expect to see attractive opportunities around aircraft and engines in the future?
There's thousands of commercial airline aircraft that will either be retired or transition to another operator over the next several years. This is especially so as the Boeing 737 MAX re-enter service, and it's going to displace many of the narrow-body Boeing and Airbus aircraft that are out there flying still. And we are very, very well positioned to purchase and remarket these aircraft when they become available. Because of the COVID pandemic, it's taken airlines and leasing companies over a year to determine their fleet plans, which are now being implemented and we believe will result in the imminent availability of the thousands of aircraft I just mentioned that'll be retired and or transitioned. Consequently, our opinion is that the amount of available equipment that's suitable for AerSale purchase will rise significantly over the next 6 to 12 months. We haven't seen it yet because, again, as airlines and leasing companies are trying to determine what they're going to do with aircraft that they're recovering from lessees, and airlines are getting their fleet plans finalized as to what they think is likely going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months as the world aviation market recovers, that's when we'll start the equipment coming onto the market. Now, right now, we're experiencing a summer peak, as certainly in the U.S., which almost feels recovered, although it's not. Certainly on the narrow body side, it's recovered. But we're experiencing a summer peak across the board, and we anticipate that peak is going to decline again with the different variants of COVID, the Delta variant going on, the amount of vaccines that are not available worldwide, which is going to affect long-haul international travel. We don't see the market substantially recovering for the next several years. Now, as the market recovers, it will displace older aircraft will get phased out and newer aircraft will get phased in. As the airlines and leasing companies realize that they don't have enough demand for all of their equipment, they'll take the best, newest equipment and they'll displace the older equipment. As they displace the older equipment, They'll either go into permanent retirement, in which case we could acquire that equipment for dismantlement into parts or refurbishment. And also, as those aircraft are displaced, they're going to be parked at our facilities. Well, not all of them, but a great number of them will be parked at our facilities, and will make it available for us to acquire without having to go very far to find. So we expect over the next 6 to 18 months is that when we think we will experience the greatest opportunity to buy used serviceable aircraft and equipment.
Perfect. And I think you pretty much just answered this next question from the audience. But the question, I'll ask it directly, is when do you expect to see major airlines start to rationalize their fleets? So anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, as I said, we're seeing it now. As I mentioned, we bought 26 757s from a major airline that were parked at our facility. We are still taking delivery of the last few pieces of equipment. And you say, well, why is that taking so long? We started that transaction back in September. The airlines today are focused on restoring their flight operations. That means they've had pilots that haven't been flying for an extended period of time. They've had equipment that's been on the ground that requires recertification checks, pilots that require, recertification checks every 6 months, new training that needs to be done on the MAX, trying to figure out, where there is demand in their systems, whether it be narrow body or wide body, and wide body certainly on the passenger side is suffering. So the airlines have gone through this trauma, and they're still trying to determine, what is their path forward. And that's taken all of their focus on basically restoring, determining and restoring their service, and not so much on disposing of used equipment. Despite the fact that disposing of their unneeded used equipment is going to help them generate cash. Fortunately, the governments all across the world have provided a substantial amount of support to the airline industry. So that's helped them stay focused on trying to get back in the air and not so much on disposing equipment, which has been a little bit of a disadvantage for us. But we are starting to see it now as things are recovering, are starting to feel, you want to say they're normal. We're years away from being normal, but as they're normalizing, airlines can focus and leasing companies can focus on, I don't need this equipment anymore. I don't have another home for it. I'm going to retire it. I'm going to sell it to somebody who's going to part it out. I'm going to move it on to the next operator, and I'm going to need maintenance services to do that.
Perfect. So let's go back into the business a little bit and talk about the MRO segment. Can you walk us through high level what services you offer there and how that fits into the overall portfolio of the business?
Sure. So MRO is maintenance, repair, and overhaul, to those that may not be familiar with that acronym. So we do MRO work. We do heavy maintenance on whole aircraft, including overhauls, heavy checks, passenger to freighter conversions. We can strip and repaint an aircraft, and we can do the reconfiguration services that are necessary when an aircraft is transitioned from one operator to another. We also supply our engineered solutions, STCs, that I mentioned earlier, to those customers that request them or need them as these aircraft are transitioned into a new customer. Our component repair centers overhaul the subcomponents to be included as part of the heavy maintenance we perform, or that overhaul work can be done for third parties independent of the aircraft we're servicing. Ultimately, we can part out an aircraft or engine to the piece part level and sell it as used serviceable material, USM, where the value in parts is greater than the value of a whole aircraft or a whole. When you look at all of this done together synergistically, this is what enables AerSale to maintain our customer base, because we offer our customers kind of a one-stop shop where they can come to us and get all the services and goods that they need. And the result of having this strong customer relationship and strong customer base and our ability to, in an integrated manner, perform, these multi-dimensional services and provide these multiple of products to our customers, keeping that customer keeps them sticky. They want to stay with us, and by providing that variety of goods and services, we're able to, and doing it all in a synergistic manner, it enables the company to enjoy higher margins than our peers.
All right, so we're getting more questions from the audience, so I'm going to jump into some of those right now, seeing how we only have about 5 minutes left of time. So this was, what is your current take on the durability of the P to C conversion cycle? How many aircraft are in process of being converted globally? And at this time, what is the probability of all this turning into a boom or bust cycle?
You know, I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I know how many aircraft are being converted. So if you just break this down, first question you asked, I think 3 of them. Ask the first question again, please.
So the first question is, what is your current take on the durability of the P to C conversion cycle?
Okay. You know, we believe that as the passenger airlines are suffering on long haul, primarily, you know, long haul wide body aircraft, a huge amount of belly space, you know, the under the passenger floor cargo space, has been more aircraft, more freight has been carried in the belly of passenger aircraft than on the main deck of cargo aircraft, on dedicated cargo aircraft. So with the substantial diminishment or reduction in wide body aircraft flying passengers internationally, which has been historically carrying most of the cargo, the wide body freighter market internationally is in a boom cycle. You know, there's just not enough wide body cargo capacity, dedicated cargo capacity to fly all the international freight. Conversely, you've got a booming e-commerce market that who knows when that's going to end. As I mentioned, you've got Amazon in the U.S., Alibaba in China. You've got a multiple of cargo operators, you know, throughout the world, FedEx, UPS, you know, DHL, all picking up cargo as a result of the global pandemic and people shifting their focus to e-commerce buying. I don't know that will ever end. I think that's going to increase. However, will that subside from its current levels? Yes. When will that happen? That'll happen, in our opinion, in the next 2 to 3 years when the international passenger market normalizes. Once that normalizes and you've got all that availability of belly space in the wide body passenger aircraft, you'll see a diminishment of traffic on the passenger side. But I believe there'll be an overall increase in freight go forward in the future due to the e-commerce.
Okay, so more of a high-level question here, and you've talked about it a couple times, but just as a reminder for the audience, you know, how you view the key growth drivers for the business over the next 3 years.
So the good thing is we've spent the last decade building out a platform that is integrated and multidimensional. So having done that, we continue to, in certain of our segments of our business are maturing, is that we continue to gain market share across each of our business segments. So doing nothing more than expanding market share on each of our business segments will allow for substantial growth of the company. We're not just going to rely on, you know, incrementally expanding market share across each of our market segments or our business segments. We also will look at adding, whether it be through strategic M&A acquisition or through organic development of new products or services, those things that we should be doing that help us extract more value used aircraft in the, you know, kind of in the midlife or greater. I mean, that is what we do here best. We can acquire a fleet, an individual aircraft or a fleet of used aircraft, midlife and older, and we can extract greater value out of that because of our integrated business model, and we believe anybody else can.
All right, perfect. So we're just about out of time. We've got about 1 minute left. We still have a lot of questions that are coming in from the audience. So as promised before we started the conference, we will follow up with Nick and team and get answers for you and revert once we have those. So with that, we'll end it here. Nick, I'd like to thank you for your time. You know, obviously thank you for AerSale. I'll turn it back over to you for any other closing comments.
Okay, you're welcome.